he was very early on interested in being a minister. His sister Amy and I, when he was a young lad, attended an early morning service with him when he had the responsibility, or at least he thought he had the responsibility, of lighting the candles on the altar. And we had, back at Kent, Ohio, we had a main church and we had a chapel, a small chapel. And he was responsible for lighting the candles in the main church at the 10:30 service, but he thought he also was supposed to light them in the chapel at the 8 o'clock service. So we went. And Amy and I sat in the pews, and Tom went off wherever acolytes go. And the organ started playing, and it got to be 8 o'clock, and all the candles were lit up at the front on the altar. But at 8 o'clock on the dot, the side door flew open. In marched a young lad with a long rod with a fire on the end of it. Turned toward the altar, bowed, looked, saw that all the candles were lit. Bowed again, turned and marched out. We knew he'd be a pastor. Even the old gentleman behind us, Mr. Klinger, I think that's the only time I ever heard him laugh. Many stories about his driving bills. One thing I should tell you, that Tom always has his picture taken for his license in his ministerial car. You can figure out. When he was a young lad, we tried to teach him how to drive. Yeah, we tried. When he first drove, we had an old white station wagon. We have 6 children and a large family. And he came. We had a little separate garage, and he came into the garage late at night with the car, and he scraped the side of the car against the door of the garage, and it was just long enough to fit in the garage, so right at the end of the car, it flopped inside the door. We could not get the car out of the garage. It was stuck in the garage. We thought of tearing the garage down. We finally got a wrecker to come out, lift up the rear end of the car, swing it over so it would be in the doorway, and drop it back. He also was showing off for his girlfriend I have one other girlfriend story. I won't tell many girlfriend stories because he asked me to. But one night he was showing off for his girlfriend as he was coming out of her driveway. I think it was the same night you snuck in your brother's window. So we had a little Volkswagen, and she had a long drive, and he was backing out that drive at about 40 miles an hour with the door open, and it hit a tree. Tore the door right off the I think that what he did was went home, he and his brother pounded the hinge flat, put it back on the Volkswagen, and you always hear these stories years later, recently, he and Janet had a little run-in with the law. They were coming over to our lake cottage over in Indiana. And just as he had been speeding on the toll road, of course. That goes without saying. And a policeman was following him back to our lake cottage. And I don't think Tom was aware that the policeman was even following him. I don't know. But as he turned in the road to our lake cottage, it's kind of swampy. He went off the road and his car sunk into the swamp. He couldn't get out. Well, the policeman...
He waved me over.
He waved you over. Anyway, the policeman, who should have arrested him, felt sorry. In a little while, we were waiting for him. we saw this red flashing light outside the cottage, and here the policeman was bringing Janet and Tom. And we thought something had happened, of course. And the policeman was a very good fella, and he laughed. And would you believe it? Tom left his briefcase in the back of the policeman's car. So the policeman had to come back. He has many, many car stories, driving stories. One girlfriend story I want to tell. When he was a student at Vanderbilt years ago, and I don't even remember the girl's name.
I don't either.
He thought he'd be a real Casanova, and he bought her a little chihuahua and gave it to her. A little black chihuahua. I think that was in the fall year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, because between that September experience and Thanksgiving, when we came down to pick him up, the girl that he had broken up, she gave him the dog back. He kept the dog in his dorm room, but the dog, of course, was not toilet trained, but you couldn't tell it in his dorm room. We brought the dog home with us at Thanksgiving when we picked him up. I will have to say that that dog was Tom claims that he gave it to us, of course. And that dog was a real blessing. It was the joy of our life for many years. But I won't tell any of the real good girlfriend stories. I thought we'd have a little interaction, and we heard Tom playing cards until he won. Do you know what he does when he wins? Have any of you ever seen what he does when he wins?
Never won.
Oh. Well, that happens a lot at our house too, but when he does win,
Should I?
show him what you do when you win. If this is at the lake, you can hear this all. Tom, of course, is known for a few other things. Just a couple other things I want to share with you. When we moved to Muncie, Indiana, where we live now, 22 years ago, my wife and I, and our two youngest children, went over house hunting. And we thought we could trust the kids to leave them back in Kent, Ohio. And it was Tom, the eldest, and the most responsible, we thought. And Amy. Amy was going babysitting that night, weren't you?
Yeah.
That's right. Tom decided to have a party. Now, 20 years later, people in Kent still remember that. We were a little suspicious when we came home a day later, because there was nothing to drink in our entire house. But Amy, when the people she was babysitting for brought her home, Mr. Cherry, wondered whether he ought to even leave you go in there. That was his last big hurrah back in Kent. Of course, he is an athlete, as you know, and you'd never guess it today, but the best known story of his athleticism was near the end of our stay in Kent. It was in the softball league, the church softball league, which always started out nice with a prayer. Did you know those church softball leagues? And it was a championship game between the Lutheran Church and the Catholic Church, which ended up in a big fight. And Tom was the catcher, and when the winning run came into the play, Tom jumped up after he tried tagging him, and the first base coach for the Catholic team came in and hit him right in the face. And it turned into a big brawl. But, so we've known ever since, don't get involved with church softball. He was a disc jockey in his youth. WRVU down in Nashville, Tennessee, and WERK, which is in Muncie, Indiana. He went by a pseudonym. We were always thankful for that. His name was Tom Richards. Tom Richards. And the thing that I was always the most glad was when he did the ad for the Highway 3 triple X rated drive-in movie.
The Blackford County Drive.
Blackford County Drive. Do you want to give him that one once?
Now showing at the Blackford County Drive-in 12 miles north of Muncie on Highway 3, triple X exit owner entertainment, more action on the screen than in the car. It's a new 10-watt heater.
That's enough. Him affectionately as LB. And and they call him LB, and not Tom, but by the initials LB. And I'll let Tom tell you what that means. We love him, and we're glad to be here on this occasion. Share some of those stories about him with you.
We're the same age. I just always look and think, better her than me. You know, and it was kind of interesting. There was a comment that was really made at their wedding, and Janet was getting ready to go down the aisle, and her dad was with her. And her dad said, "Janet, we had such high hopes for you." And she knew what Janet's life would entail. But I worked with the numerous pastors, different congregations I served in, and you know, Tom and I have really a strange and wonderful relationship. He's strange and I'm wonderful. But there are a few things that I've had the, I guess, good opportunity or good fortune to be a part of. And Tom kind of has a way of stepping into things and pulling other people along with him. And one of those things is the chaplaincy, or the University of Chapel at Bowling Green. We're on the board of directors there together. And we travel out there about once a month for meetings and to make sure things are okay. And it was a terrible winter, obviously, this winter. I can't remember it now, but it was. And it was one of the days, I think we even had a snow day or a cold day, but we had this meeting in Bowling Green. We needed to be out there at 4 o'clock. Okay? So we're leaving, it's about 10 till 4, of course. The roads are ice covered and we're just barreling out there. We get there, we have our meeting, and he said, "Do you mind if we stop off somewhere on the way home?" And I'm like, "Okay, no problem." Well, he doesn't tell me we're going to a funeral home. So we pull into Waseon to the funeral home, and I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm and I'm like, I'm hoping people don't think I'm actually with them. You know, so I'm like making sure that they know who I am and that we're not really together. And then they all of a sudden, Tommy has a way also of mooching. And I think there's a special degree or a special course that they take at the SEM, because we didn't have it at Concordia. I think that's totally a seminary degree or course. He can mooch a meal, a ride, clothes, I mean everything, tickets. No one in here ever give him tickets to anything, please. Give it to the teachers. So we're at this funeral home and we're chatting with the bereaved family, and I don't have a lot of training in this. And all of a sudden, the widow said, "We've got food at the house." Well, it's like his antennas went up. And there is a thing that was in the USA Today about that Northwest Ohio, per capita, per household capita, eats the most Jell-O of any other part of the United States. And I think Tom is one of the reasons. But he was so excited because they were talking about this funeral food. And I said, "We are not going there to eat." I said, "I don't care. We are not going to this funeral meal." He was so disappointed. He goes, "They have the best Jell-O salads there." But we did not go there to eat. I convinced him into heading back home. And there's a couple other quick things I want to, first I want to thank his parents, Tom's parents, for creating such a sensitive child. There's going to be a slide you're going to see fairly soon that's going to represent him. I sometimes call him sensitive man because he just seems to meet the needs of so many people. And I feel your pain kind of thing.
Right.
Then his other pastime, in his spare time, is to change the message on my answering machine. He broke into the code of my answering machine, so now he can retrieve my messages, he can change my messages. And so if you ever want to hear his latest answering machine messages, you can call my house, but please leave a message. I had so many hang-ups now that I'm getting around. But for a while he was Thomas the Butler answering machine. Then he was the refrigerator because the answering machine was on vacation. And one last thing, I'm taking coursework at Bowling Green. We talked a lot about crisis counseling, and it seems to really work a lot with dealing with Tom and Janet and children. And one of the things that I know is a family thing at their house, and it's amazing, some of this Midwest kind of inbreeding is kind of scary sometimes, but there is this terminology about being bubbly. And you have to talk to Tom to find out what bubbly represents, and I know what LD stands for.
That's enough, Miss Kelly. You may stop.
So please, I want to thank you, Tom, for your many years of service here, and Janet, your blessings for many, many years to come. If you ever need to get away, you can come and stay at my house.
Thank you.
Y'all know, tonight with us, somebody extremely special. Yes, yes, it is. Do I hear special? Thank you. I thought I could hear special. We got somebody that's here to bring you glory. I hear glory. Glory. Okay, I thought we did some glory. Do we hear some amen? I'm with you, brothers and sisters. We're here. Okay, we have one special tonight. Somebody really, really special. Somebody sitting on the throne. On the throne tonight, we have the Dr. Thomas Ollismeyer from Trinity Lutheran here tonight. Do we hear Trinity? Trinity! Oh, praise the Lord. Now, we like to know the Pastor Ollismeyer is here. He's actually got to give visit, but we don't care nothing about that. He is the pastor, he is the reverend, we're going to have that to do. That's what we're doing here. So what we'd like to do is, looking down the throne, we'd like for him to give our altar prayer.
Is this my cue? Can I really And I've always been very impressed with him, very impressed with his family. So one Sunday, it was, I think the Sunday after Easter, I was the liturgist at first service. Pastor Lanscrater was at second, because we had a guest preacher. So after first service, at Sunday school, I said to my wife, Janet, and the kids, I said, let's go up to Charlie Johnson's church. So I went up there. I thought we'd just kind of slide in and sit in the back row. But they had the ushers, just as the committee here, with the white gloves, and blue outfits and everything. And they changed the guard every 5 minutes or so. And suddenly one of them came up to me and they said, "Are you a reverend?" And I said, yes, I am. And they said, "We would like you up front." So I went to the front of Calvary Baptist Church. And I felt bad for Janet. She was sitting back there with the kids, who she was counting on me to help with them this Sunday for a change. And I sat down in the throne there for a while up front. They have like about 4 of them up there. And I just sat there, they were rocking and rolling their service. I thought, what in the world's going to happen? And meanwhile, Sam has been acting up back in the pew. One of the women said, "Take that child out of here." And another one said, "Oh, that's all right. I gave him a lifesaver, Sam, because it wasn't chocolate. He took it and threw it down like that." And then another woman said, "I used to have a little child like that here." And she took him downstairs and reported his lack of behavior in church by feeding him a fried chicken dinner. Taking after his old man, Then the pastor leaned over to me and he said, "Write your name on this piece of paper." So I wrote it down, gave it back. And a few minutes later, he leaned over. I remember, I just went to observe this church service. He sit in the back. He said, "We would like you to give the altar prayer." And I went, "The altar prayer?" I said, "I've never been in a Baptist church." He looked at me like, "You'll do all right." So the time came, and he goes, "And now to lead us, if you have any burdens, anything that hurts, anything that you're joyful about, come up to the altar." And about 100 of the 350, 400 people did. And they said, "And now to lead us in the altar prayer, the Reverend Dr. Tom Allersmeyer, Trinity Lutheran Toledo, and a friend of Deacon Johnson's." So I got up there. And that's what happened. The organ started playing. I said, "Man, I think Boger ought to be here and learn about this." So I started out, I said, "Our resurrected Lord Jesus Christ." I paused, the organ went, "Amen!" Like that. And I kind of opened my eyes for a moment. I said, "This is kind of neat." So I shut them again and started to say a few more things. And every time I would pause, the organ would go, would kind of go like that. And I said, "This is great." And people were shouting amen and doing all this stuff. So I'm pulling every Bible verse I know. I'm just pulling them all in. And I'm going on. And by the time I'm done, I'm pumped. I'm ready to preach now, And anyway, I kind of puff up like that and go down. They said, "No, you go ahead and stay here for the remainder of the service." So I sat up and presided over Calvary Baptist Church, just thinking, gee, if one of my church superiors could see me now, sitting up here in front, I'd be in big trouble. But it was even better, and I want you to take note of this. After the service, their deacons all sit in the front row, like our elders. And after the service, one of their deacons came up front, and he said, I thought he was going to say something like we do in the Lutheran church, like, "Hey, nice you came, there's some punch cookies out there, help yourself. Nice you came." No, not the Calvary Baptist. He said, "We are not the people that God has made us to be." The man of God, he points to the preacher, he said, he's got a word from God, and you people, you're walking in and out. Some people couldn't even stay to the end of the benediction. Then he whips over to the choir and says, "You choir, you're messing around and laughing during this service. We can't have that." Then he turns to the deacons in the front. He said, "And half of you deacons, you fell asleep during the message." He said, "If you can't stay awake on Sunday morning, you go to bed earlier on Saturday night." I said, "I've got to hire this guy to come to church." But no, I'm up there thinking, what did I do wrong? Because I'm sure he's going to turn around and say, "And you." But he let me off the hook. I didn't do anything wrong for a change, I guess, in that one. But there is a true story behind this. And it was kind of neat. Like I say, Charlie's the nicest guy in the world. And obviously in the Lutheran Church, we have certain rules on fellowship and, Lutherans and Lutheran alders and these things. But Charlie came up the next day and he said, I heard you were there, because Charlie wasn't there. He was out visiting one of his kids. And he said, I've been talking to my pastor, and I think we ought to do an exchange. You and the Trinity choir go to Calvary Baptist, and we'll bring our pastor and we'll come over to Trinity. I said, wait till the elders hear about this one, How do I get myself into these things, The thing I was really scared of, though, is you'd like keep that guy and get rid of me, because he was really good. I love it when the blessings, when the prayers go up, blessings come down. He was very good preacher, really good. I love the service, it was good. Well, I explained it, right? Because I say anything else than this used to preach, and I'd forgotten where I put my sermon, that was awful. But I didn't need it, that was fine. Okay, a couple of notes that I think I need to say in clarification. First of all, thank you to the people who put this together. I got little bits and pieces of this, but I didn't know this much about it. And really, they took a lot of time and did a lot of very special things. And I'd like to applaud them once again, because they really did. First of all, I'd have to turn to my father, because my dad, and I give him a lot of credit, our family, he was the first member of his family to go beyond high school. He went to college, then went on and got his master's and doctorate. He's a college professor. My mother has her master's degree as a school teacher. And I've always felt that they've opened up a lot of horizons for us. One of the reasons I got my doctorate was I felt I wanted my children to have that same expectancy level that I think was instilled in us. But it was interesting. I learned from my father the rhetorical question. You know what the rhetorical question is? That's when you ask a question, you already know what the answer is. Like when you say, for example, do we believe in God? Well, the obvious answer is yes, we do. That's a rhetorical question. I can remember when I grew up, a rhetorical question I heard many times was, how could you be so stupid? Until I finally discovered the answer. I would just simply turn to him and say it's heredity, and that took care of it. But no, I tell you, I say over and over again that I'm grateful to my parents, because they gave me two things in my life, I think, that I wish more parents would give to their children. One is they gave me the freedom to dare to do things. I always knew that whatever I dared to do in life, I could always go home, because there would be the place where I wouldn't have people saying, I knew you couldn't do it, but I'd have people who would say, hey, we're proud of you that you tried. They were always there and always encouraging. I think parents ought to do that with kids. And also the second thing was they just gave us a lot of themselves. We were always the highest priority to them. And I guess that's what I wrestle with sometimes in being a pastor, is to give to my children what I was given from my parents. About Janet. And Janet, she comes off a little bit like she's docile, and sort of mild-mannered, and people say, poor Janet, like I'm such a tough guy. But I'll just give you a couple things that are illustrative of Janet. Now, Janet directed when our first congregation, before she had children, she was like a gangbuster. You couldn't stop her. She directed 3 choirs. She greeted with me on Sunday morning. She was headed up things in our weekday school we had. She was very, very involved in the parish. 4 children, 12, 9, 7, and 3, take a great deal of her energy now. With me not around as much as I'd like to be, it has cut back. But I'll always remember my grandfather, if he were still alive, he'd laugh about this too. When she would direct the senior choir at St. Luke's Lutheran Church in Waseon, my grandfather gave her the name Little Caesar, because what she would do is she'd march in like this with that choir. They'd all march just right in step. And then they'd go into the pew, and she'd stand there and go, and they'd all sit together. I mean, what power. Today, when Janet puts her hands out like this, I get ready to sit. You know what I mean? She has the strength. And, she's gotten on these kids. We haven't had television since October. Janet decreed no more television in our house. So we have, don't encourage you, okay? Hey, now the newest one is, we're gonna be frugal. We're gonna, you know, we want to do some things, and she does. She gives our money away, the Lord's money away, she does. We, you know, she's always been the encourager to tithe and to go beyond that. She does marvelous with that. In order to do some things we want to do, she said, we're going to leave those window air conditioning units out. It takes too much